Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Jay versus Horror. Guys, tonight we're going to talk about some fun April Fool's Day films. They're not really April Fool's Day films. There's not a lot of April Fool's Day films out there. We are going to talk about the major one though. And we're going to talk about some films that play pranks on us. And we're going to get into Movie Club Week 5, our review of Edge of Sanity. We're going to cover a few other people's reviews from the group. We're going to talk about who gets to pick next week's film. We're going to do all that, guys. But first off, I want to just quickly mention that we need your help. We're trying to keep the lights on here. We're trying to keep things going. There is a link in the description. And if you can donate a couple dollars to help us, it would be greatly appreciated. We're in a time of need right now where we're trying to keep things going. So if you can help, it will be greatly appreciated. And I'll even personally mention you the next time we do a video. And we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you can help, we appreciate it. So let's get going, guys. First off, let's talk about movies about pranks. So this is a common trope in horror films, right? Pranks go wrong. And when pranks go wrong, somebody's got to pay for it. And sometimes it's not even a prank. Sometimes it's a manslaughter incident, a type of thing where things just went a little too far, right? But the movies that we want to talk about are the ones that are really focused on pranks. And my favorite one I mentioned earlier today is Slaughter High, and it's from like '87, I think. And it's a fun movie where a prank goes wrong, and you have all the cool kids playing a prank on a nerdy kid, and then what happens, of course, the nerdy kid comes back and gets revenge. Now, this is from that era of slashers that we've been talking a whole lot about recently. There's that early era of slashers where everybody's going to summer camp and everybody's getting picked off at summer camp, or everybody's a babysitter, that type of film, right? So by the time we got to the late 80s, we started having to change things up a little bit. We got all these weird kind of like evolutions of the slasher film. And Slaughter High is one of them because they're not at the high school. It's not a high school film. They all come back for the reunion, and that's when they get picked off by Marty, right? And there's some really good kills in this film. I remember when I was a kid just thinking it was a really solid film, and it was one of those that like I would stay up late on Saturday night to catch the double features, and this is one that played a lot. And I just remember thinking it was really solid. And also, I remember the very last shot of this film scared the living shit out of me when I was a kid. It's Marty's not dead, okay? I'm giving it away. But if you get a chance, uh, go watch Slaughter High. I think you're gonna love it a lot. It's a fun film from that era, and like I said, it's one of the where they start to get weird, like Intruder, and they start to have a different spin on this slasher genre, right? So there's some other ones like that. Of course, we know about Carrie. Carrie is full of pranks, right? They just constantly are messing with Carrie in that movie, and of course, just like every other film, when you do something, you just paid for what's going to happen next. In wrestling, they call it a receipt. You know what I mean? You bought something, and now you're going to get the receipt. And that's what happens in horror films. And there's a lot of horror films based just on revenge, right? Pumpkinhead and just tons of them. Landmine Goes Click, where they talk about, and those are the ones that don't have anything to do with sexual revenge, right? So, but the prank ones are the more interesting ones because you really have to question whether the people deserve what's happening to them. I mean, a prank is a prank, but sometimes pranks go too far. And that's another thing that happens with House on Sorority Row, right? They're pulling a prank, they accidentally kill the girl, and then what happens? She comes back later. But and then like because when you think about movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, those kids actually make a terrible decisions. They become murderers at a certain point in that film, right? I mean, they don't actually kill the guy, but they don't know that. They think they murdered him, and so they just try to get rid of him, right? And so I like the ones where it's a prank gone wrong because there's a little bit of ambiguity about the morality of the characters to begin with, right? How horrible are they? Do they deserve what's happening to them? So we'll talk about the big one now, and the big one is April Fool's Day. And they remade this movie. The remake was terrible. It didn't even capture anything that the original did. And here's the thing about April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day. It's not a bad slasher film, but a lot of people hate that movie because it's a prank. The movie is a fucking prank. And here's the thing. I never understood why people hated it because I've never seen anything be more upfront. The name of the movie is April Fool's Day. What did you think was going to happen? I was like they told you that they're going to fuck with you, and then they fuck with you in the movie. And a lot of people got upset about it. They don't like it. They don't consider it a genuine slasher film because of the way it ends. And I don't know. I like it, and I think the film was very upfront about what it was, and still managed to trick a whole bunch of people and piss them off. So yeah, I think it had a lot more impact and effect than it gets credit for. All right, so guys, those are some of the ones we can talk about. Now we can talk about movies that played pranks on us. Okay, like one of the films I will say that played a prank on everybody is probably like The Sixth Sense, right? That was the whole point of that movie, and then it was the whole point of that movie to a almost a detriment, where it becomes this whole thing where M. Night Shyamalan, when he makes a film, if it doesn't have a great big twist, nobody cares. They're just like, oh, that was terrible. That wasn't nearly as good as Sixth Sense, right? After that, because I would argue that Unbreakable is even a better film. Like cinematically, Unbreakable is a better film than The Sixth Sense, but it doesn't get near as much credit because it doesn't have the big twist ending. And I would even argue that it does have a big twist ending, even though a lot of people don't see it that way. They just kind of see it as a superhero film that's based more in reality. But yeah, I love Unbreakable. I think it plays with a lot of genres. I even think there is some horror in Unbreakable. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, that's some of those films they always try to play tricks on us. Films with big twist endings try to play tricks on us. Another M. Night Shyamalan one that did actually kind of get me was The Visit. I don't know if you guys saw The Visit, but at the end of that one, I was like, oh shit, this is terrible. I can't believe this happened. But yeah, and it's got a couple just really gross scenes in that movie too. So that one got me. There's been some other films over the years. I guess you would have to say like one of the ones that I would mention. Just go out there and watch if you've never seen it. It's underrated. I don't think it's underrated anymore. We have to be careful about that, right? Because we talk about films that are underrated and we talk about them for like 4 or 5 years. We say they're underrated. After 4 or 5 years, they're not underrated anymore. All those people went out and watched them, and now they're telling other people that they're underrated. And at a certain point, they are rated accurately. But this one is one of those films. It's called Lake Mungo, and it's an Australian found footage film. And the whole movie is a mind fuck trick. It's a visual trick. And it just goes further than you even think it's going, right? Because there's a setup here. And then about 40 minutes in, you're going to kind of get a little pissed off because the movie tells you that it's fake. It tells you that the setup that you just invested all this much time in is fake. But wait, because there's more to the movie. There's more story to tell. And then when you get to the end, there is a very impactful visual trick that they have done in this film that you never saw. And it's not, you're going to see several visual tricks in the film and you'll pick up on them. But when you get to the end, there is an even bigger surprise. And I always felt like they pulled a prank on the audience with that film. So those are the prank films. We talked about the April Fools. You see, I struggled about whether I was even going to do this tonight or not, because I thought it might be funny just to not even do it and make that the April Fool's Day prank that I pulled. But I didn't do that. Anyway, let's move on, guys. Movie Club Week 5. Edge of Sanity starring Anthony Perkins, right? And yes, some people did note that he hams it up in this. And guys, there's so much to talk about with this film. And look, I love this movie, but I'm going to be honest from you right out of the chute. I wish it wasn't so sleazy. I wish it wasn't so sleazy because personally, I don't enjoy the sleaziness, even in the giallos. I love giallos, and they're just about all of them are sleazy. But I always kind of hate that part because I want the thriller aspects. I want the mystery aspects and the crime aspects and all that. So it gets a little tedious for me, especially in Edge of Sanity. There's, I think, the second big kill sex scene where they're up on the roof. It just goes on and on forever, and it's terrible, right? But there are so many other good elements to the film. I like Anthony Perkins' performance in this. Yes, it's hammy, but if you look at this film and look at the way it's shot, it looks like a comic book movie from that era, right? Now, this came out in like 88, and Tim Burton's Batman comes out in 89. And I'm not saying that anybody tried to copy anyone here. I'm just saying it's just a thing about that era with the styles. But if you look at this movie and you look at the way it's shot, especially on rooftop, when he's in Hyde mode, when he's in Mr. Hyde mode, especially, just look at the way it's shot. It looks just like Tim Burton's Batman. And it looks like Anthony Perkins is doing a more sinister version of the Joker than Jack Nicholson ever thought about doing, right? So that's the kind of feeling that I got from it this time. I get something different from this film every time I see it. I just remember it from being a kid and watching it and thinking, wow, that was so like psychologically weird. Because you have to question. Okay, so he takes the drug. Basically, what it is, it's cocaine, but he does something to it. Him and his monkey in the lab messing around with it, and he turns it into crack, basically, right? Because he's smoking rocks the rest of the movie and going insane and doing crazy shit. When he smokes crack, he turns it into hide, and it's not just crack; it's like super crack or something. So, yeah, it's an interesting film too, though, because he's also psychologically damaged, and you have to wonder, like, is it the drug? Is it the psychological thing? Is he using the drug as a way to enable the psychological problem? There's more layers here than just this weird, sleazy thriller. And I love Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins died a couple years after this. Actually, I think he died in '92 from AIDS, and he kept that hid the entire time that he battled it, right up until he died. And then he released a statement, and he talked about how that people said that AIDS was a curse from God, and that he felt that it was a gift from God because he learned more about caring about people and loving other people through AIDS than he ever learned through anything in his life. And he even talked about, he was very cynical about the industry towards the end of his life. And it was sad. Anthony really only worked in horror. I mean, what's sad about that is because he got, what they call stereotyped or pigeonholed or whatever you want to call it, because typecast, I guess is what they call it. But yeah, after Psycho, but he had some like award where he was nominated for major awards in other performances before all this happened, where he got pigeonholed into playing a crazy guy, right? And for a long time, he didn't really do a whole lot of anything. And then when Psycho 2 came out, man, just one of the greatest performances of all time. I don't care in any genre. Psycho 2 is one of the greatest performances of all time, because you don't know the first time you see that movie, you don't know what the fuck is going on until the end. And you think that he's crazy the entire time, and he's not. And then you realize at the end, oh, wait, he is now. Again. And he just nails it. And, to me, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm old, but like one of the creepiest things in horror ever is Anthony Perkins carrying that body into that room and us hearing that voice and knowing that it's coming out of his fucking mouth, right? It's like creepy. But yeah, Edge of Sanity, not quite the film the Psycho films were. It might, I don't even think it's probably, if you like look at the pure quality of the film, it's probably not even as good as 4, because I like Psycho 4. I think that's a good film. It's fun. But it is special to me, and I like it. And I like the idea that's in here about how, Henry Jekyll, that would be HJ, and Jack Hyde would be JH, the mirror opposites of each other. And of course, Jack Hyde would be Jack the Ripper. And it's so crazy because we were just talking about this last night. Lisa and I were watching a documentary about the Long Island serial killer who still hasn't been caught. And a few days ago, we had watched a documentary about a British serial killer who was killing prostitutes. And the whole time we were, discussing Gary Ridgway, who was the Green River Killer. And we're talking about how, like, if you've ever noticed, if one cheerleader goes missing off a college campus, if one blonde suburban housewife goes missing, they will literally stop fucking traffic and they will find this woman, or they will beat her husband to death until he tells them that he murdered her, right? They will find out what happens. But when it comes to sex workers and women who aren't, who don't have money and all that, let's just call them prostitutes. They're just a victim pool. They don't care. It's like you can kill, 13, 14, 15 prostitutes before they start even asking questions, unless they find them. Like if they find them all in a pile somewhere, they're going to get upset because they don't like that. But, it's crazy. Like guys like Gary Ridgway killed like 30, 40 women and dumped them all in the same fucking spot for a 10-year period. And they never caught this guy. I mean, they finally caught him, but fuck, they tripped over the dick and he was doing something. I mean, that's basically what happened, right? It's fucking terrible. And, that seems to be the way it goes. Like with the prostitute cases, it's like it takes forever for them to. And yes, I know that these women do put themselves in situations that makes it easier for them to be victimized, but that doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't mean that we should normalize it or allow it to happen. Anyway, I don't know how I got off on that, but it is in the film that he's killing prostitutes. Of course, Jack. That's what we're talking about. They go all the way back to Jack the Ripper, and these women are like considered. they're what do you call it, objects of opportunity or something, victims of opportunity, because they're allow men to get close to them. And so that's been a common theme, and it's been that way for 150 years or 200 years, and it's still not something that's anybody's really figured out how to deal with. It's just weird to me, you know what I mean? But anyway, I don't know how we got off on that, but yeah, guys, that's all we got. No, let's read some of your reviews. So what would I give the film out of 10? Okay, like honestly, it's probably like a 5.5 out of 10. But for me, it's more than that. I saw it as a kid, like on Showtime or Cinemax or something. It's always stuck with me, just the weirdness of it. And also, like, I considered Anthony Perkins to be like a classier actor. That I didn't know he did films like this. I hadn't seen Destroyer yet, of course, when I saw this one. So let's go over to Jay versus Horror, guys. Go check out Jay versus Horror if you haven't checked it out. 25,000 members there. All we do is talk horror. We love horror. Okay, we're gonna see a few people commented. Not everybody wrote like big long reviews about this film. But a lot of people like went from right here and watched it. And Andrew Blackwell said, what do you get when you cross Jekyll and Hyde with Jack the Ripper? This absolute gem. Double the fun, twice the terror, edge of sanity. Jay Shelton says, I saw it years ago, and I can't remember much about it, honestly, so I'm going to have to check it out again. And, yeah, everybody's saying that they're going to watch it. They can't wait to see it. If they saw it advertised back in the day. Charles Dean says, if you really want to see a crazy Anthony Perkins performance after this, go watch Crimes of Passion, another good film. Deborah Daly. Deborah, we're going to get to you next, okay? We've got a long list of people planned out to pick movies, but Deborah, we're going to get you in it because I was seriously thinking about this today. And I'm like, you know what? We haven't picked any females. Because I just randomly, like, I'll just scroll down and pick one of the comments and say, okay, if that person has commented a lot in the past, I will say, okay, let's let them pick the next movie. But I haven't really consciously thought about it. We haven't picked a lady yet. So after we get through Russell and Greg, we're going to go to Deborah. Deborah will be our next after Russell and Greg, 3 weeks away. So, yeah. And me and Lisa, of course, we rewatched it. One of my favorite reviews that I wanted to read here because they didn't like the movie, and I think that's fair because I did. I wanted to read Chris Olsen's review because Chris Olsen actually picked one of our movies, and he's been pretty active in Movie Club. More like Edge of Mediocrity. They took the fascinating psychological horror of Jekyll and Hyde out of the movie and replaced it with a painfully hammy Anthony Perkins performance, making goofy faces while slicing and dicing a bunch of semi-nude hookers. It's a trashy exploitation slasher flick with a lot of style, but not much intelligence. There's some nice giallo visual flourishes sprinkled out throughout, but no scares and no suspense. Chris did not like Edge of Sanity. Guess what, Chris? You're not alone. A lot of people didn't like it. Lisa didn't like it either. I think she had kind of the same problem with it that I do, even though I like it. It tends to go on with like the sleaziness, and you almost feel like it's that era, and they're doing it for an effect instead of. It doesn't seem like it's contributing to the movie at a certain point. It's taking away from the movie, and I agree with some of what Chris says there, and I can see how, like, especially like if you're viewing it, maybe even if it's the first time you're viewing it, you're not going to be in awe of it like I was when I was a kid. I was like, what the fuck is this crazy shit with Anthony Perkins in it? But I like Anthony's hammy performance in this, and I like the Joker makeup, and I like that. You didn't think I was dead, did you? Type stuff. You know what I mean? It's fun to me, and yeah, I could have used a whole lot. I wish there was a different cut of this movie, actually. I could have used a lot less naked hookers. I know a lot of guys out there love these movies, though, because of that, right? Like, I'm not going to say his name because I fucking can't stand this dude anymore, and he thinks he's a big deal now, but he's not. But this guy that I used to do a podcast with, who was a Canadian, we had irreconcilable differences. You know what I mean? And it came down to a part where, like, it was like the guy talked about nudity so much that I felt like I was like having a conversation with a pervert or something. You know what I mean? Like it became so much, and the guy was married, like, like say happy birthday to his wife and stuff, and then he would come on and talk to me, be like, "Oh, she had the greatest tits in the world." I just don't. I don't want to. I know, like, people say that's locker room talking. Guys do that. Well, I don't know what locker room you're talking about because The locker rooms when I grew up playing football and basketball, the locker rooms I was in, if you talk like that, the coach was gonna pull your ass out and put you on a bench or slap you in the back of the head or something. And they didn't play around. Doug Adams did not play around. He didn't want to hear that shit. And so the boys that I went to school with, we didn't talk like that. So I don't get that whole thing and people who like sleaziness. I don't really like it. I don't know. Like if you want to watch porn, go watch porn. If you want to watch a movie, watch a movie. I don't see how you want to like invest time in these weird fucking sex scenes that don't have anything to do with the movie, right? Other than they do like I guess they validate the psychological issues that this guy has, and that's what I said. I keep coming back to different things every time I watch this movie. And one of them this time that got me was I questioned, this guy. Okay, it's very easy, and this happens with a lot of drug addicts. I would argue it happens with a lot of drug addicts that they use the drug to enable their own bad personality, their own bad behavior, and then later on they say, "Oh, it was the drugs. It was the drugs." Some of it was the drugs. Some of it is addiction, and some of it is you're a shitty fucking person. Because I've known people who did drugs who didn't do shitty stuff. Like if they didn't have money to get drugs, they just didn't do drugs. And then when they got money, they went and did them. They didn't go rob people and make people's lives fucking miserable because they wanted some substance or something. And in this movie, he's doing terrible things, and he's just saying, well, but if you look at the character, even when Jekyll is not that great either. Jekyll is very much like, fuck you, I'm doing this. It's not like he's struggling. Oh, God, I took the stuff the one time, and now I'm having these random bouts where I turn into a monster. No, that's not what's happening. He's not hulking out, okay? This motherfucker is dropping rocks in a pipe and smoking them. And anybody who tries to stop him while he's in regular mode, he's not having it. So you can't really just put it all on drugs and say it makes you crazy, it makes you turn into a monster. It's not that simple, right? Hey, guys, I appreciate you watching tonight. We love you. You know that. Like I said, there's a link in the description if you can help us out. We're trying to keep the lights on around here. And we want to keep going. We want to keep doing movie club. We want to keep doing the videos. We want to keep hanging out with you guys and having a good time. So if you can drop us a couple dollars, thanks. If not, I understand. And we will talk to you the next time we got something we're talking about. Now, don't forget, Russell De Silva. He's a big fucking deal in India, guys. Google him. He's one of my personal friends, and we're going to get Russell to pick our next movie, and I can't wait. I can't wait because I'm always want to pick Russell's brain about movies because, like, it eats me alive to know that there's even, like, a subcategory of horror films that I haven't seen or don't know about. And so I'm always trying to pick Russell's brain about stuff, and it'll be interesting to see what movie he picks for all of us to watch and review. And we'll talk to you, like I said, guys, the next time we got something we're talking about. Bye.